Okay, welcome again. We are back again. And in this video, we are going to we are going to learn adverbs of frequency. Yes, adverbs of frequency. As you know, adverbs describe verbs. So, how frequently verbs happen? Okay. And what is different about these adverbs is that they don't come at the end of the sentence like the other all adverb of time, adverbs of place, adverbs of manner, adverbs of purpose. They all come to the end of the sentence as complement, but these adverbs of frequency, they just come before the verb. Yes. Is there a sentence? Yes. For example, Yasin always writes. Okay. This is the significant feature. This is the important feature of these adverbs. What are they? How many are they? For always. Let's start with always. 100%. Yes. Yasin always writes stories. 100%. Always. Every time. And then comes almost always. Maybe about 95%. Yes, 95%. Not always. Almost always, 95%. Often or frequently itself. Yes, frequency noun, frequently adverb. Usually, normally, regular, general, I think 50%. Yes, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, maybe 20%. Seldom, occasionally. Rarely, hardly ever, and never, not ever. Never means not ever. Rarely, hardly, ever, like never, they have got negative. Maybe rarely, hardly ever, maybe 5%, but never 0%. Never. For example, he never writes articles. Yes, he never writes articles. Yasin never writes articles. 0. Or he doesn't ever write articles. Yes, these are our ingredients of our recipe today. Just like the recipe of making a potato salad, for example. We make a potato salad with the ingredients: potato, onion, parsley, olive oil, and even pepper. Yes, pieces of pepper, red pepper. Okay, now these are our ingredients, and we are going to make a meal. We are going to make a meal with those ingredients of our recipe. Yeah, this is our recipe. Adverbs of frequency show you. What do they show us? What do they show us? They show us how often, how frequently something happens. Okay. Adverbs of manner shows how something happens. We know this. Yes. For example, Yasin always writes stories. How frequently does he write stories? How often does he write stories? He always writes stories. Or he sometimes writes poems. How often does he write articles? He never writes articles. Or he doesn't ever. Never means doesn't ever. He doesn't ever write articles. Yes, this is this. with yes, from this dialogue on, let's start our cooking. Yes, cooking our meal, making our cake by focusing on those adverbs of frequency. For example, dialogue one. I usually eat. Yeah, I usually eat honey and toast for breakfast. Usually. Not always, but usually. What do you usually eat for breakfast? I usually eat olives, cheese, and butter for breakfast. What do you usually eat for breakfast? I usually eat boiled eggs, poached potatoes, omelette, fried eggs, jam for breakfast. What do you usually eat for breakfast? I usually eat soup. Yes, in English they say soup, but in Turkish we say drink soup. Okay. Voracious reader, voracious, eager reader, good reader, or willing. We have just learned them in the previous video, in the previous presentation. We learn eager learner, willing learner, wanting learner. Maybe it doesn't sound good, but as wanting learner, meaning is true. But structurally, we should say voracious. In literature, they say voracious reader, eager reader, a good reader. These are famous. Voracious reader is a prolific writer. So, prolific, being a prolific writer depends on reading voraciously, reading eagerly, reading willingly. Yes. A good reader speaks and writes. A good reader speaks and writes heedfully, carefully, attentively. Yes. Heedfully and carefully. I always read. I always read. I usually write. A nice motto. I always read. I usually write. What do the let's take a look at the images, mottos, quotes. Yes, they also call them, name them quotes. Yes, keep quiet, be silent, don't speak, keep quiet, and read a good book. Nice advice. Library, please keep quiet. Yes, please keep quiet. Also in hospitals, they also say shh. Please keep quiet. Yes. Keep quiet. Shh. Yes, this one. Keep quiet. Shh. I am writing. Okay. What does a good reader do? Yes, there are a lot of qualities of a good reader. A good reader thinks carefully. A good reader uses his or her program, asks questions. Yes, these are really true principles. How to become a prolific, a beautiful word. Prolific means productive, or fruitful, fertile, yes, fertile, fruitful, prolific. Okay. Adverbs of frequency usually come before the action verbs. However, they usually come after the to be verbs in a sentence. They show how often or how frequently something happens. For example, my friend often goes to library because he is always. Now, adverbs of frequency come after to be. This is this. But before the action verbs, this is this. Okay. Yes, let's see the adverbs of manner. This one. And to read and to speak useful things. Huh? Yes, okay. Okay, Faruk can learn karate easily. Adverb of manner. Oh, here it is. Here. Where is the adverb of manner? It is here. Here it is over here. Because he is generally eager, willing. Yeah. So he can learn karate easily because he is generally eager to learn something new. He has got will. 2. For a large breakfast, for a small breakfast, for a large breakfast, for a large breakfast, I usually have honey, milk, and olives. What do you generally have for a small or light breakfast? I eat soup for a light breakfast. Or I have soup. I have a soup for a light breakfast. 3a. Sami always drinks tea for his breakfast. Who always drinks milk for breakfast? Ayşe always drinks milk for her breakfast. Who always eats soup? Nancy always eats soup for her breakfast. What do you always have for your breakfast? I always have cheese and butter. Cheese and butter for my breakfast. It is always a few dates for my breakfast. Yes. I always eat a few dates. I always save a few dates, yes. Or it is, my breakfast is always a few dates. I always eat, I always have. Be, do, have. Yakup is always diplomatic, tactful. I always respect him for his diplomacy, for his kindness, for his tactfulness. Why do you always respect Arif? I always respect Arif for his industriousness, for his noun, for his industriousness. I always respect Arif because he is always industrious. Adjective. He is always industrious. He always has, industriousness. Okay, now, so I respect him for his industriousness, for his hardworkingness, diligence. Yes, the rest are all nouns. 5a. Harun never talks. Harun never, 0%. Harun never talks loudly. Who never criticizes the others? Yasin never criticizes the others. Harun doesn't talk loudly. Never talks, doesn't talk. Yes. Attention again, please. Harun never talks. There is S. But here, the same message. Harun doesn't talk loudly because there is doesn't. We don't use S here. Harun doesn't talk loudly. Who doesn't ever criticize the others? Marco doesn't ever criticize the others. Harun never buys poor quality things. Attention again, because this is, although this part, the sentence part has got the positive meaning, positive structure, it has negative meaning. So it is negative sentence. Harun never buys poor quality things, does he? We say does he, although the structure is positive. Harun doesn't ever buy poor quality things because there is doesn't. Here we use does. Both the structure and the meaning are negative here in Roman number 2. Is it clear? Harun never buys poor quality things, positive in structure, but negative in meaning. So we say does he. We don't say does. But if we say Harun always buys poor quality things, doesn't he? We would say that. But here, Harun never buys poor quality things, does he? Harun doesn't ever buy poor quality things, does he again? Yes. More tech questions with negative adverbs. Negative sentence, positive. Yes, you know this. This is a principle. This is a rule. If the sentence is negative, the question is positive. But if the sentence is positive, the question part is negative. Okay. 1. The old man never thinks milk. Does he? Negative sentence. Yes, negative. Although the structure is positive, the meaning is negative. It's a negative sentence. In fact, in reality. The old man never thinks milk, does he? Just like this. Negative sentence. The man doesn't ever drink milk, does he? Yes. Hardly, barely, rarely, the three of them are just like never. Okay? They have got negative meanings. You can hardly swim nowadays, can you? Negative. We consider it, yes, we take it as negative. So we ask with a positive question. You can hardly swim nowadays, can you? For example, you know this. Just like this. You can't swim nowadays, can you? Yes, negative sentence, positive question. This sentence is negative because of hardly. Just like never. The old man never drinks milk, negative, does he? Okay. Let's take a look at this one. They barely take subway. Do they? Or just like this, they don't take subway, do they? For Teresa rarely spoke Spanish. Did she? Teresa didn't speak Spanish. Did she? Yes. Nadir has never met Murat. Has he? Or Nadir hasn't ever met Murat. Has he? Okay. Dialogue 6. Timur never says no. Timur never says no. There isn't no in his mind, in his memory. Timur never says no. Who never says never? Timonti never says never. Why do you never eat chocolate? I never eat chocolate for my health. Who is never on a diet? Who is never on a diet? Simon is never on a diet. He is always fit. Okay. Timur doesn't say no. Timur never says. Here, Timur doesn't say no. Who doesn't say never? Timonti doesn't say never. Why don't eat chocolate? I don't. Here, I never. Here, I don't eat chocolate for my health. Who isn't ever on a diet? Simon isn't ever on a diet. Isn't ever means Simon is never. Is never. Is never means isn't ever. Dialogue 7. I am always happy. With. I am always happy with. Let's make them a little bold. Together, happy with. Happy with. Yes. This one. I am always happy with my breakfast. I am always happy with my house. I am always happy with my neighbors. I am always happy with my lessons. I am always happy with everything positive, every positive things. Are you always happy or unhappy with your breakfast? I am also always happy with my breakfast. I am not unhappy with my breakfast. Helen always washes. Helen always washes the dishes. Who always cooks? Nadir always cooks. Who hardly ever goes shopping? Selin hardly ever goes shopping. Who never eats out? Uh, Peter and Julia never eat out. They never eat out. Dialogue 9a. Hassan often goes shopping, or Hassan frequently, often. Hassan often goes shopping. Who often cleans the house? Yakup often cleans the house. Who often washes the car? George often washes the car. Frequently. George frequently washes the car. Dialogue 10. I usually get up early. I usually get up early. When do you usually get up? I usually get up when I usually get up early too. Does a day begin with the sunrise or with your wake up? My day begins with the sunrise. Yes. Or a day in my life begins with the sunrise. When does a day end? A day ends with the sunset. Sunrise, sunset. Noun, they are nouns. Generally, specifically, adverb. Specifically, my day begins with my wake up, but generally the day begins the day begins with the sunrise and ends with the sunset. Sunrise, dawn, sunset, dusk. Yes. The time of the time of sunrise is also called dawn. The time of sunset is also called dusk. The sun rises in the east, you know this. The sun rises in the east and the sun sets in the west. 11. Mehmet frequently drives to work. Mehmet frequently goes to work by car. How often does Sinan drive to work? Sinan always drive to work. How does Orhan go to work? Orhan sometimes cycle to work, and Orhan sometimes, or he sometimes goes to work by walking on foot. Okay. Orhan sometimes goes to work by a bicycle and sometimes by walking. 12. Burhan generally does the ironing at home. Do verb ing. This is almost a general principle. Burhan generally does the ironing at home. Who else generally does the ironing at home except for Burhan? Yasemin generally does the ironing at home, except for Burhan. Other than Burhan, except for. Now, except for now. Okay. For example, we have courses except for Monday and Friday. Okay. 13a. We sometimes go on a picnic. How often or how frequently do they go on a picnic? They often go on a picnic. They usually go on a picnic. We occasionally have dinner. Late. Do we have dinner late? Occasionally or frequently? We occasionally have dinner as well. Clara is always joyful. To be plus adverbs of frequency. Clara is always joyful. Who is almost always funny or comic? Helen is almost always funny. Who is often happy? Jale is often happy. Who is frequently unhappy? Nurhan is frequently unhappy. Who is usually angry or grumpy? Ekrem is usually grumpy. Who is generally hungry? My friend Peter is generally hungry. Who is sometimes busy? Mike is sometimes busy. Okay. This is like this. Dialogue 16a. Yasin always takes the train to work. Means Yasin always goes to work by train. Who almost always takes the bus? Kerime almost always takes the bus. Who frequently goes bike riding? My neighbor frequently goes bike riding. Who usually plays sports? My dietitian usually plays sports. Who generally plays music? My dentist, yes, my dentist generally plays music. Who sometimes plays basketball? My optician sometimes plays basketball. 17. Ali is almost always an optimist. Noun, a person. Optimistic is adjective. Who is often a pessimist? Jale is often a pessimist. Who is generally a realist? My friend Adam is generally a realist. Who is sometimes an outsmarter? Outsmarter means so clever. My neighbor Bruce is sometimes outsmarter. Yes, remember them again. Optimistic adjective. Optimist noun, this one. But optimism noun again is the name of that state, of that position, of that situation. Pessimistic adjective. Pessimism is the name of that position. Realist is the person, noun. Realistic adjective. Realism is the name of that psychology, of that mood, of that situation. Yes. To be under the weather means, if you look it up in the dictionary says that to be under the weather means to be ill. If you say, today I am under the weather means today I am ill. To be interested in is we really need it very often. We really need it very often in our everyday language. Be interested in. For example, I am interested in playing football. What are you interested in? I am interested in reading books. What are you interested in? I am interested in watching plays in theaters. Be unhappy with means not happy with. If you are unhappy with something, means you are not happy with that thing. 18. Murat is hardly ever under the weather. What does it mean? It means that Murat is hardly ever ill. This is this. Who is never interested in his or her health care? My old friend David is never interested in his health care. Who is rarely unhappy with her diet? Our neighbor Clara is rarely unhappy with her diet. Who is seldom in danger of being unhealthy? Selim is seldom in danger of being unhealthy. Who is occasionally against you? My new friend Joseph is occasionally against me. Are you for or against dieting? I am against dieting. Or I am for dieting. 19. Hülya hardly ever washes the car. Who never washes the car? Sadrettin never washes the car. Who always washes the car then? Cemil Bey always washes the car. I always go to bed early. Do you always go to bed early or late? I also always go to bed early. I always go to bed early as well. I don't go to bed early, late. I never go to bed late. 21. I always visit. I always work one. Plural subject, present tense. I always visit my grandparents at the weekends. When do you visit your grandparents? I usually visit my grandparents on Mondays and on Fridays. 22. I am always proud of my neighbors. Who are you always proud of? I am always proud of my old friends and my new friends. To be proud of, to be proud of. Be proud of somebody, something. Be proud of seeing them. I am proud of seeing you, for example. 23. Hakan is always helpful to help somebody, not to help somebody, but to be helpful to somebody. You should take a note of it. Hakan is always helpful to the others. Do you always want to help the other people around you like Hakan? Yes, I always want to help the other people around me like Hakan, like him. Let's put a heading here like this. To be helpful to, but just to help somebody. SB means somebody. Let's put here some SB to SB. To be helpful to somebody, to help somebody. Don't confuse them. Okay, I think it is clearer now. What does it say? The moon turns around the sun. Yes, it's a fact. It's a reality. It is always true. The moon turns around the sun because the earth turns around the sun too. The moon turns around the earth. So both of them, the moon and the earth, our earth, turn around the sun together. Okay. 24. Alice always goes to work by subway, by metro, by underground. Does Mary always go to work on foot? Yes, Mary always go to work on foot. Subway in New York, metro in Paris, underground in London. Okay. Broad-minded, tolerant, they are adjective. Did you notice this sign is also important? Way out. Yes, you can go out by means of this, by following this sign. Way out. Okay. Exit or exit. Exit sign or way out sign. For example, can you tell me where is the way out sign, please? Can you tell me where? Where is the way out sign? Where is the exit sign? Okay. Broad-minded person. broad-minded doctor. Tolerant doctor. Adjective. Ahmet has a broad-minded perspective. Perspective is noun. You know this. Ahmet has a broad-minded perspective. What kind of perspective does Ayşe have? Ayşe has a positive perspective, a scientific perspective. Yeah, these are all adjectives. Artistic perspective, honest perspective, sincere, diplomatic perspective, harmonious perspective, coherent perspective, balanced perspective, far from extremes. Yes. Ayşe doesn't have an extreme perspective. She has a balanced perspective, fair, ethical perspective, political perspective, humanistic perspective, holistic perspective, yes, atomistic perspective, subjective perspective, objective perspective. These are all really useful. Global perspective, universal, local, optimistic, realistic, materialistic perspective, solution-oriented or solution-centered perspective. These are really beautiful adjectives. Okay. What kind of perspective do you have on life? I have a harmonious perspective on life. Okay. Okay. Quiz, yes, tour 4, trip 8. Please choose the correct alternative. Question 1. Sami always blank tea and cheese for his breakfast. Always. Which one? Has, of course. Sami always has tea and cheese. Can, no. Can requires a verb. Yakup 2. Question 2. Yakup blank always diplomatic and fair. Yeah. Is, of course. Yakup is always diplomatic and fair. But if we put perspective after fair, then we must use Yakup always has a diplomatic and fair perspective. Yes, let's not force it. Okay, the answer is. Yakup is always diplomatic and fair. It means Yakup has a diplomatic and fair perspective. Harun never talks. Let's look for an adverb. Harun never talks. Happy, no, happy is adjective. We cannot use adjective here. Kindness is noun. We cannot use a noun. Nice is also adjective, but loudly is adverb. And it defines, describes, modifies verb, talk. How does Harun talk? How does he talk? Harun never talks loudly. Okay. 4, are you always happy? Blank your breakfast. Yes, please familiarize or acquire this expression to be happy with, to be happy with, to be unhappy with. Are you always happy with your breakfast? We sometimes blank on a picnic. So it is the collocation of go and on. Okay, go on. They should go together. They should come together. Or we sometimes have a picnic, for example. We sometimes have a picnic. We sometimes go on a picnic. Go on a holiday. Go on a holiday. Go on a picnic. A different type of saying, have a picnic. We sometimes have a picnic. Okay. Yes, I made that explanation without seeing this. We sometimes have a picnic. How often do you have quizzes in your online course? Yes. We have quizzes. We have always, yes. We always have quizzes in our online courses just after So just at the end of the presentation, like this. We always have a quiz just after the presentation. Okay, useful paragraphs. 1. This attitude must be the ideal one. Ideal. Bullying, mobbing, annoying, oppressing, these are all negative manners, negative perspectives, or negative actions, negative, yes, point of view. Negative situations, negative moods, okay. Bullying, negative. Mobbing, annoying, oppressing, injustice, depressing somebody, and violence are not acceptable. They are not acceptable because they are not legitimate and legal. They are not legitimate and not legal. They are not humanistic. Still, even so, our elders, but however, still so, our elders said, do not be injured from the injuring one. This must be the ideal attitude, ideal perspective. Okay. Soul and body are opposite to each other, aren't they? Soul and body are opposite the other. One of them is materialistic, body is materialistic, but soul is spiritual. Okay. Although soul and body are opposite to each other, like light and darkness, how come they are together? Our body is materialistic, our soul is spiritual, our body is like darkness, our soul is like light. How come they are together? How is it possible that they are together in a body? B, soul was made, this is the reason. This is the raison d'etre, or this is the key, or this is the explanation. Soul was made to fall in love with the body by Allah the Almighty and wise. The love caused them to be together because of love. Soul became, but later, soul became like the body. And the test trial began. It was a decline after perfection, yet, but a decline to rise, to regain that perfection, to gain that perfection again. Peace be upon those who managed to rise. What a pity if some fail to rise. Why are children and teenagers more earthy? Because they live this conflict more severely. Okay. This is the Turkish translation. Okay. So thank you very much and see you next time. I wish you a good day.